So we'll continue with the linear power supply design. And again, I said people are thinking that linear power supply is obsolete, but it is not the case. As you would know, because of the advent of the IoT devices and all that, specifically concerned with communication, many times the switching power supplies are not a very, very good option, simply because they create a lot of electromagnetic interference. So we require to have linear power supply. There are of course limitations to SMPS technology also. That is, the ripple, maximum ripple cannot be less than 50 millivolts, and many times your circuits become sensitive to that. So we have to go for opt for what is called as a linear power supply. So we started off last time, we said something about design of shunt regulator, which is a very basic regulator, and this comes in handy quite a lot of times. You're going to see such an example. I hope all of you are able to see the PowerPoint slide. Yes. Guys, please respond. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, don't underestimate this linear power supply design. Okay, you'll be really surprised to know that there is no specific method given anywhere. Okay, whereas with so many years of my experience, I have devised a method of designing a linear power supply, and I would like to share it with you. So this is going to be a unique thing. Anyways, so continuing with the shunt regulator, we already have seen the demo also, some sort of demo like this. So as you can see that we can have both positive shunt regulator as well as negative shunt regulator, giving you plus, in this case, a positive voltage, negative voltage, which is plus minus 5 in this case. So it becomes very handy. Many times you don't want to invest a lot of money, lot of design efforts, specifically when your current requirement is less than 100 milliamperes. In that case, you can very easily use a shunt regulator over there. Okay, and then we said something about, rather we had started with the concept of series regulator. Now, in contrast with the shunt regulator, you see that the series regulator, we have the control element which is in series with the load. So this is basically what is interesting. Okay, that is the reason why it is called as a series regulator. And you can see here, very simple to understand this concept, that okay, I'll just switch back to OneNote page so that it becomes easy for me to demonstrate some things. Okay. Now, are you able to see the OneNote page? Guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, for the previous discussion, we had said that this is the unregulated power supply. And we had the regulator or the regulating device in shunt with the load. So this is the regulating device. Okay. Now in this case, in our case, we'll be having, when we talk about we'll be having a series device which will regulate the voltage. So this is going to be your load. This is going to be your regulator or regulating device. Now, a very simple thing that may come to your mind is, if you have an unregulated power supply like this, and you want to control, or you want to have control over this output voltage. Now I can simply have a resistor here, okay, and that resistor I can vary. So if this is your V in, this is the V out, okay. So what is basically the output, and let us say this is your voltage across that device. Okay, so output voltage is given as V in minus VR. All right, agreed with all of this? All of you agree with this, guys? Guys,
Yes, sir.
hello. Please be interactive, be attentive. Don't simply log on and go. Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes,
since
sir.
there was a call drop. So do you agree to this equation? Simple?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Now say for example, if the output voltage because of some reasons tries to go up. Okay, what can you do? What can you do? Decrease VR or increase VR. What? Tell me. If I want to maintain this back to the original value, if V in is going to be some certain value, looking at this equation, if I want that if VO increases, I don't want it to increase, so I want to compensate for the change. So what should I do here? What should happen to VR?
Increase.
Yes, absolutely correct. So VR should also increase. Okay, and this will compensate for the attempted increase in the output voltage. Similarly, if VO tries to decrease, what I can do is I can decrease VR. Now this is going to be some sort of a manual, very crude system, isn't it? If you want to do it manually, so this actually is a manual regulator of some sort. Okay, this we don't want this to be the case. We want it to be automatic. So we want to find out a device. We want to use a device which will let us control the voltage drop across it. Okay, and such a kind of device, if you see carefully, is our transistor. Okay, this is going to be the VCE. Okay, and if you look at the output characteristics of the transistor, namely IC versus VCE curve, and then you have the characteristics like this. Okay, this depends on, this is IB1, let us say this is IB2, this is IB3, and we already know the concept of load line. All right, now say for example the operating point was somewhere here, so corresponding to that I am having this VCE 1, let us say, or VCE 2, because this is coinciding with this. Correspondingly I had, let us say, IC2. Okay, now if I want to increase the drop across the transistor, that is if I want to increase VCE, what should I do? If I want to increase VCE, what should I do? Look at the characteristics, output characteristics. I should move this Q point somewhere here, for example. Right? Yes or no? Guys, please respond. Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Arey, no, you have to respond, no? Why aren't you responding? So my question, see, this is supposed to be a kind of, a classroom effect, It's not a monologue. I want you to participate in these things. So if I want to increase VCE, what should I do? Moving the Q point here, that's fine, but on based on what? Hello? I will decrease IB. Right?
Yes, sir.
Or no? Now, on the other hand, if I want to increase, if I want to decrease VCE, what will I do? I'll shift the Q point here. Again, based on what? So if
Increase
I
IV.
decrease VCE, I will be increasing IB. So this gives us a very nice way of controlling the drop across the device, which is exactly what we expect here. Are you able to understand this?
Yes, sir.
So if this is your unregulated input, and if I'm having a transistor like this, connect a load here, I can control this base current in such a way so that this VCE drop can be adjusted. So my equation now becomes VO is equal to Vin minus VCE. Why can't you have a resistor like this? Why can't you have a passive device like this? There are two problems associated with this. What is that? First of all, this is not automatic. Okay. Not automatic. And secondly, look at this output resistance that is seen, output resistance of the power supply, that will always change. If I change this value, the output resistance will also change. So RO is variable, which is with both these things are bad. So I cannot use a resistor and then do it manually like this. Okay, and that is the reason why I have to make use of an active device, namely the bipolar junction transistor. Or in fact, you can make use of MOSFET also. But our design or discussion will be restricted to bipolar junction devices. Okay. So now we have a mechanism wherein I can control the drop across the device. Of course, I can set this IB value. I'll use some mechanism here which will sample the output voltage and correspondingly change the base current. Okay. So this is what we'll see what kind of mechanism it is there. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So is this clear to all of you? Is this concept clear to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So
Yes, sir.
we have another use of this, rather the way in which you are supposed to use it is something like this. So this is your unregulated power supply. Output is E in. We have a series pass element. This is called as a series pass element. We have a load, and here what we do is we use a shunt regulator at the base. Call this RS. This will be VZ. Okay, this is plus minus VBE. This is your load current and this is your output voltage. So now what will be the equation for output voltage here? Of course, it will be V in, V out, which is equal to V in minus VCE. That is fine. But here, from this perspective, if you see, what is it going to be? V out is going to be equal to VZ minus VBE. How will this work as a regulator? Yes? Again, remember one thing, that if output voltage tries to change, let us say if output voltage tries to decrease, okay, VZ is going to be constant because it's a Zener shunt regulator, so this VZ is going to be constant, okay. So what will happen, now I'll put it this way, VBE is equal to VZ minus VO. So VZ is constant, but V out has tries to decrease. So what will happen to VBE? Guys, this is the
Decrease.
VBE will increase. Now, if VBE increases, look at the transistor input characteristics, or this is going to be your VBE, this is going to be your IB. This is just like a diode, okay. And let us say earlier it was this point. This was the VBE. VBE1, IB1. Now what has happened to VBE? What has happened to VBE? VBE has increased, isn't it, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
VBE has increased, so I'll get a new point here. Correspondingly, I get a new value of base current. Call this as IB2. This was your VBE2. So IB has increased. I'll put it like this. So IB increases. Now what will happen if IB increases? Going back here. Look here what is happening. IB is increasing now. So what will happen to VCE?
Decreasing.
So VCE will decrease. Or if you want to go the other way around, IB increase means IC will also increase. So VCE will decrease. Got it? Are you able to understand this? IB increases, yes, means IC also increases, no? Because IC is HFE times IB. Mark this properly. This is the DC beta HFE. Capital F, capital E. Now VCE has decreased. Now what will happen with, if VCE decreases? What is the equation telling you here? If VCE decreases, what will happen to V out? What will happen to V out if VCE decreases? Guys?
VO increases, sir.
VO will increase. So see what has happened. Attempted change or decrease in VO is compensated, nullified, and this is how you get the regulation. You can work the other way around also. If VO tries to increase, now you tell me, what will happen to VB?
Decrease.
It will decrease. What will happen to IB?
Decrease.
Don't blindly do it. See here, VB has decreased, so IB will also decrease. 3. So IB will decrease. If IB decreases, what will happen to IC? IC also decreases. If IC decreases, what will happen to VCE? If IB decreases,
increases.
Going here, so what will happen to VCE? It will increase. Remember, the load line is going to be constant. So VCE will increase. Now if VCE increases, look at this equation. If VCE increases now, what will happen to VO? what will happen to VO?
So decrease. Decrease. VO decreases.
Excellent. So you see that it has been compensated. Have you understood the mechanism?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is the basic mechanism. Now I cannot go into more details because of lack of time. But then we are supposed to cover quite a lot of grounds. So I'll switch back to the presentation. Once you understand the mechanism, things are going to be very easy for you. Just hold on while I switch to PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so this is what necessarily was there. Okay. All right. Then you have some variations also. So you can have variable output voltage regulator with a kind of mechanism, kind of feedback mechanism here. Okay. So some part of the output is fed back, and then this is called as an error amplifier. Okay. The design is out of scope at this point because of time. But then necessarily you can have a variable output voltage regulator also based on similar kinds of things. Instead of the error amplifier as a bipolar junction transistor, you can use an operational amplifier to control the base drive. Okay, this gives a better performance. Okay. So before we go into any more details, we have already seen this when we were introduced to the components. Let this be a sort of revision. What are the basic selection parameters of bipolar junction transistor? The very first thing is the breakdown voltage BVCEO, that is maximum voltage that you can apply across the collector and emitter with base open, and if you exceed this particular condition, there will be a breakdown. The collector base junction breaks down. Okay, damages permanently. Then you have the maximum collector current, you have the maximum power dissipation capacity, you have the DC current gain H capital FT, beta DC it is also called as, and the transition frequency. Transition frequency is not important for our discussion here. This we have already seen, the safe operating area. So it simply means that you cannot have the operating point somewhere here. Okay, you can have the operating point here, you can have the operating point here, but not, you are not supposed to go into this area. So this is called as the no or invalid kind of area, where if you try to take the transistor into this area, it is definitely going to be damaged. There will be a breakdown. Okay, coming back to the regulators, you have the 3 terminal. Guys, hello.
Yes, sir.
So you have already learned about 3 terminal regulators, am I right? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
You have. Okay, let us just quickly revise what are the blocks therein. Again, as you can see, our now familiar series pass element. Then you have a reference voltage, which is nothing but the Zener thing. Okay. Then you have something called as a protection circuit for SOA, safe operating area, for the series pass element, thermal protection again for the series pass element, and the error amplifier. So all these blocks are mostly known to us. No need of going into the details of these things. Why you have a current generator? Because you want to make it independent of the temperature variations, and with the help of a constant current source, you can make a very good reference voltage. All right. Simple thing that would be seen is like if I drive, if this is the shunt regulator, if this is the Zener characteristics, and if I make sure that this current is going to be constant. Okay, so it is going to give me a very, very nice reference voltage, which is not changed by temperature because we are driving it with a constant current source. Okay, it doesn't matter. Let us not go into those details. So this is a 3-terminal regulator. I hope all of you know what exactly the 3-terminal regulators look like and all. So how do you design a linear power supply with the 3-terminal regulator? So this is the complete view. What you have here is the step down transformer. Okay, then you have the bridge rectifier. Most of the times bridge rectifier is preferred. There are so many advantages of using bridge rectifier. Then you have the filter capacitor here. Okay, and a positive voltage regulator here. These two capacitors have special functions which are given in the data sheet for linear positive voltage regulators. Of course, the voltage regulators. This capacitor C2 and C3. So C3 actually improves the transient response. It simply means that it makes the regulator fast to react to the changes in output. Simple as that. This C2 is required only when this distance is larger. Because if the distance is larger, this wire inductance may also come into picture. And to swamp out that particular inductance, to compensate for that inductance, we use a capacitor over here. So that is the function of C2. Okay. These are all things which are given in the data sheet. So please remember, this is the topology for fixed output linear power supply, which is giving us a positive output. We are going to see a detailed design. Then another variation is this, very similar to the previous one, except for you have an additional circuitry over here, which actually boosts the current sourcing capacity of the power supply. Now regulators, most of the times 3-terminal regulators of the series LM78 series, they have a typical maximum rated load as 1 ampere. Okay. Now if my current requirement is more than 1 ampere, what should I do? So this mechanism, this particular circuit boosts the current sourcing capability. All right. So let us see how this works. Let us see how this works. Okay. Now you can see very simple thing over here that this transistor, remember this is a PNP transistor. So the current flow direction is like this. Now I can make sure that this particular resistor R1 is such that in normal working conditions, that is, say for example, I want to share the load after 1 ampere. 1 ampere is fine. This guy can deliver 1 ampere, but if my load demands more than that, what will happen? Okay, if you don't use this, one very first thing that would happen is this regulator, because of dissipation across it, power dissipation across it, and temperature rise, it will shut down. Okay, this is one thing that will happen. It is equipped with the internal thermal shutdown. So how to extract more current from this setup? Okay, so what you can do is you can make sure that up to 1 ampere, whatever is the drop across R1 is less than 0.7 volts. So you have to select the value of R1 such that whatever is the current, let us say 1 ampere, 1 ampere into 0.7, sorry, the other way around. So the resistor that would be required would be something like 0.7 volts divided by 1 ampere. So that is 0.7 ohms. Okay, so I'll select the value of resistor R1 as 0.7 ohm. So in normal working condition, when it draws 1 ampere, no problem. This guy will be shut down. This guy will not be turned on. Why will not be turned on? Remember, this is PNP. So for PNP, the emitter has to be greater than base by 0.7 volts. We are assuming that this is a silicon transistor. Okay. So normally this is less than 0.7 in normal working condition. So this Q1 is switched off. It is not turned on. But as soon as I start drawing more current, 1.5 ampere, let us say, then the drop across this will be sufficient to turn this transistor on, and whatever is the excess current will be passed through this. Okay. So finally you get a total of 1.5 amperes, for example, here. Have you understood the mechanism? This is called as the current boosting. Guys, have you understood this mechanism?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
I think you have studied this somewhere. Have you? Have you studied this earlier? Guys?
I guess no.
No, you
Like,
haven't.
not sure. Not
Not
sure.
sure.
Remember. Yeah.
So this is a good time to revise your concepts. All right. So now we have the mechanism wherein we can boost the current sourcing capability of a regulator. Okay. Now this is another topology which is called as a fixed output dual current boosted. It simply means that I am generating a dual power supply over here, plus VO minus VO. Look at this. This thing is called as, this is a center tap transformer I am using, and now this particular mechanism or this particular device circuit is called as a dual complementary bridge rectifier. Okay, it will generate a dual power supply. If you remember, I had given you this kind of circuit when we studied LIC long back. There I had introduced this kind of dual complementary bridge rectifier. And again, this is again current boosted. Here you can see you require a PNP here, but you require an NPN device here. Most of the times we take a matched pair. All right. So this is the topology for fixed output dual current boosted power supply, linear power supply. Again, this is a fixed output. So once you design the output, it is the voltage, it is not going to change. Then you have something called as a linear power supply, which is, whose output is variable. So there are some devices, regulators, which will let you change the output voltage. So this is called as a variable output. And LM317, this is a positive regulator, adjustable regulator it is called as, and LM337 is a negative adjustable regulator. So now with the help of this, you can vary the output voltage right from 1.25 volts to whatever higher value, generally restricted to about 35 volts, depending on the combination that you use over here and the input voltage over here. The output voltage equation is given like this. Take a look here. So depending on the value of R2 and R1, you can change the output voltage. Okay, but once it is changed to a particular value, it will get regulated. Okay, so this is called as the variable output linear power supply. Then this is variable output with current boosting. Nothing great. I have just used the current boosting transistor here. That's all. Everything else remains the same. Then this is a special case. Don't get intimidated by the circuit. It's very simple. The basic idea of any 3-terminal regulator, please pay attention here, that if you are talking about LM7805, this is your unregulated input, this is your output, and this is supposed to be the third terminal which you are supposed to connect to the ground. Now always remember one thing, that when it says 7805, always the voltage that is maintained between these 2 points is 5 volts. Now if you make this ground, output will be equal to 5 volts. Okay, But if you somehow increase the voltage over here to, let us say, 3 volts, then the output will be 3 plus 5, that is 8 volts. Of course, your input should be greater than this by at least 2 to 3 volts. This is called as a dropout voltage. Voltage over here to 3 volts. So it's not necessary that always it is going to give you 5 volts. It depends on how you connect this to ground. In fact, you can make the this kind of regulator, you can make a variable one also by simply connecting a resistor like this and tying it up here. This will make sure that you can adjust the output voltage also. Anyways, this was for the fixed terminal regulators, but for variable, the interesting thing is that once you change the voltage at the adjustment point terminal, that is this terminal, this is called as the ADZ terminal. This terminal is called as ADZ terminal. So we are just manipulating that. Now, okay, what do you mean by dual tracking? This is important. Now, many times you want that the output voltages change in the similar manner. So if I have plus 5 volts, if I have minus 5 volts, and I want to change them to minus 7.5 volts or plus 7.5 volts and minus 7.5 volts, this positive voltage should track the negative voltage. So by only changing this from 5 to 7, automatically my other value should be changed from minus 5 to minus 7.5. Okay, so that is called as a dual tracking. And this is a very simple circuit which I have designed. There are other designs available elsewhere, but this is my design. A very simple thing I have used over here, and that is I have just taken the feedback from this place, the voltage from this place, and I have inverted it using an inverting amplifier. So I can get a negative reference here, and this also is adjusted automatically. So the moment I change this, this voltage also changes. This voltage will also correspondingly change, but in the negative way, and I will get the change in the output voltage. You study this circuit a little bit for a little bit while and see if you understand this properly. Of course, for that, your concept of 3-terminal regulators have to be very, very concrete. Guys, are you able to understand this, or like you are just looking at it as if just like a movie? Guys, hello? Hello? Hello?
Sir, can you explain it?
I already did, and I'm asking you a number of times whether you have understood or not.
Yes, sir.
What do you want me to explain now?
So how is it getting adjusted? Like there's a op amp in the center, so I'm not understanding that part.
Okay. So basically, have you understood the concept of what is the necessity? I mean, what exactly is a dual tracking power supply?
Yes, sir.
Have you understood that?
Yes, sir.
So my output voltage, this positive voltage should track, rather this negative voltage should track the positive output voltage. So if I change this should automatically get changed. All right. Okay, up to this point. Is it okay up to this point? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So now, if I change the voltage at this point, I mean, if I vary this pot, this voltage is going to change. Agreed?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, based on that, we already know this how this LM317 how it will work. Correspondingly, it will change the output voltage. No problem with that. ठीक है ना? Because the basic mechanism which I told you right in the beginning, just like for any 3-terminal regulator, as a matter of fact, is that if this is so. So if this is your input voltage, if this is the output voltage pin, if this is called as the adjustment pin, so whatever is the voltage over here, let us say if it is 7805 and this is grounded, so the voltage always across these two terminals will always be plus 5 volts. That is guaranteed. First of all, once I change this reference itself, once I change the reference to some other voltage, for example 3 volts, in spite of that, this is ADJ terminal, so in spite of that, output is going to be already ADJ terminal is at 3 volts, no? So it's going to be 5 plus 3, that is 8 volts. So I am having a mechanism wherein the output voltage gets changed. This is the concept of the variable output regulator. Okay? Now,
Yes, sir.
okay. Now, look at this scenario here. The voltage over here has changed. This is a simple inverting amplifier with a gain equal to 1. So if this voltage becomes 1 volt, this will become minus 1 volt. Agreed?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So correspondingly, the voltage appearing at the adjustment pin of this terminal, this particular device, also will be now minus 1 volt, and it will have a similar kind of output.
Yes, sir, got it, sir.
What I'm doing is I'm trying to have the same magnitude of voltages between these 2 points. Of course, the polarities will be different because this is a negative regulator, this is a positive regulator. Understood now?
Sir, got it, sir.
Okay, we'll see this in action with a simulation. So don't worry about that, even if you don't understand this right in the beginning. Okay, now if I want to modify this, many times you require that the output voltage should start right from 0 volts instead of 1.25 volts, which is standard with these devices. It should start right from 0 volts. So for that, I can make a modification like this. See what I'm doing? I'm again using a dual complementary. So I'm having some negative output here. Okay. And then I'm using a negative shunt regulator. That is what I'm saying. It's negative. Okay. So this is for the modification down to 0. Okay, we'll not go into these details. These are some additional protection required for the regulators, specifically the 3-terminal regulators. This capacitor may charge up and then later on it may discharge and damage the internal circuitry. So for that we require a diode connected like this. So this is just for protection of the regulator. Okay, when we talk about the transformer, which is the very first device that you're going to get into this linear power supply design, there are some things that you are supposed to know. So when I'm having a full wave center tap transformer, what is the secondary? What is the relationship between the? I mean, what is the value of the load, the RMS secondary current? Okay. So if I want to find out this has already been proved. So it is 0.7 times. So this needs some clarification. This is a transformer. and you have the secondary current I secondary, and you have some load. There is a load current IL. Now this load current is DC, this is RMS. So that is the reason why we have to strike the equivalence. Okay. So it simply says that this table says that when I'm using a choke input filter, okay, the secondary RMS current is 0.7 into load current. If it is capacitor input, it is 1.2 into load current, and so on and so forth. We are going to use these equations while designing the power supply. Yes. Now, as I said, any design will start with specifications. Okay. And there are three types of specifications that we come across. One is the input specification. Specifically in case of the power supply, we have the input voltage and the frequency. Output is output voltage, load current, and of course there is one more thing which is there, and that is the maximum ripple allowable. This is one thing. Okay, and then the ambient like temperature and humidity. So the design example here, we use these specifications. The input specifications say that you are supposed to design a regulated power supply, a dual polarity regulated power supply with the input as 230 volts. There will be fluctuations over there, 230 volts plus minus 10 volts, single phase, 50 hertz. That is the line supply. What are the outputs expected? Outputs expected are plus minus 5 volts with a maximum load current of 2 amperes. So this is called as a rated load. And the maximum allowable ripple is only 5 millivolts. Now, if you remember, if I'm having a capacitor input filter, so my waveform will be something like this. For the output, okay. So these are going to be the peak values, and this is going to be the ripple. So it says that our specification says that this ripple value should be 5 millivolts or less than that. If it is 6 millivolts, your design will fail. All right. So have you first of all understood the specifications, guys? Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir. In the input specification, sir.
Yes.
What is 1 minus 5?
Input specification called a single phase. This is called a single phase, and this is the symbol. This is a symbol for phase. Okay. Is that fine? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what about this ambient specifications? This is important. It simply means that I'm going to use the power supply. I'm going to use the power supply with the ambient conditions of 45 degrees Celsius. Okay. And nobody asked me about this. The maximum junction temperature that I must allow or I can allow is 100 degrees Celsius. This is the junction temperature of the devices. Okay? Is that fine? So let us see the design. Let us see the design. It's going to be very interesting if you look at it carefully. Okay? Otherwise, it will be very boring to you. Let us first of all select the circuit topology. So as we have already seen, this is the circuit topology which we are selecting. So the very first step is selection of appropriate circuit topology. Please remember that most of the designs do have some certain processes or steps, and I want all of you to just make a record of these steps. The step for linear power supply design may be different. The step for data acquisition system may be different. That of filter may be different. That of SMPS may be different. Okay, but in general, for linear power supply, the steps are going to be common. Take any linear power supply as a matter of fact. All right. So this is the topology which we have to select. We have not yet selected any of the devices. It's just the topology. Remember, it's the topology. That is a circuit. And then you are supposed to select the components and do your job. Okay? Is this fine?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So step 2, the very first, second step is we have output as plus minus 5 volts, load current as 2 amperes. So we calculate. Okay, tell me one thing. Of course, you have not done power electronics properly at the same time. Okay, is this a component which you are supposed to select? Is this a component?
No, sir.
It is not a component. Load is not a component. It is a condition. Load is a condition. The user can connect anything to it, provided he is meeting the specifications. So we have to find out the load conditions, worst case load conditions, and that is RL minimum. This is not, again repeat, this is not a component. You are not supposed to select a resistor over here. This is a condition, load condition we can say. That also worst case. That is, you are drawing maximum 2 amperes out of it and the voltage is 5 volts. So the maximum load condition, worst case load condition becomes 2.5 ohms. That I will call as RL minimum. Simple. Hello? Hello? Hello guys?
Yes, sir.
I think there was a call drop again. Okay, so is the step 2 clear to all of you? Simple step. Is the step 2 clear to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Unless and until I get a response from you, I'm not going to go ahead. Please remember that. Now, what is the step 3? Step 3 is selection of an appropriate 3-terminal regulator. So already we know the 3-terminal regulators. LM7805 is there, LM7905. This is for negative, this is for positive. Okay. So we select the device based on our requirement. That is, the output should be plus minus 5 volts. And so I'm selecting this LM7805 and LM7905. You can see how the devices look. I've already provided the picture. And now the time has come for us to download the data sheet of these devices. Okay. So from the data sheet, I've made a table over here. And from this is a very important table. These are the important parameters which you have to watch out for. Okay. So for 7805, 7905, the very first important thing is the V in maximum. It is nothing but the rating. What is the maximum input that I can apply at the input to this 7805 or 7905? In case of 7805, it is 35. Here it is minus 35. Then the thermal resistance. We have already seen the concept of thermal resistance, theta JC of this particular package. Now these devices may come with different package types. The type which I am using here is TO220. Okay. This package is called as TO220. Okay. This package is called as TO220. Okay. For this TO220, thermal resistance is 5 degrees Celsius per watt. Same here. Thermal resistance junction to air, theta JA is 65. Here is also it is 65. Operating temperature, you can see. Line regulation, yeah, these are very important things. We have already seen these three things as what? This is ST, this is SV, and this is RO sort of thing. Of course, directly you not get those values. You get it in terms of changes in the output voltage. So our SV was delta VO by delta V in. This was defined as delta VO by delta IL. Of course, the other two things remaining constant. This was defined as delta VO by delta T. Okay. So here you see that the temperature stability is given like this in millivolts per degree Celsius. Whereas here it is not directly mentioned in terms of delta VO by delta IL, but it is mentioned as change in the output voltage. So delta VO here also and delta VO here also. It says that maximum change in the output voltage will be 100 millivolts, not more than that. Similarly here, even if the load current changes or even if the line voltage, that is the input voltage, changes. These are very important things. Understood? Guys? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Another important thing for our use will be this very important factor that is called as a ripple rejection ratio. It simply means that how much it is capable of attenuating the ripple. At the input it may have some ripple, and at the output how much it will attenuate is given by this ripple rejection ratio. For example, if the ripple rejection ratio is 60 dB, it simply means that if my ripple at input is 1 volt, it is reduced to, yes, anyone? Rejection. This is the rejection ratio, reverse of that of amplification. So this is a attenuation factor. So 60 dB corresponds to how much? 1000. So it means that if my input ripple is peak to peak 1 volt, my output peak to peak ripple is guaranteed to be not more than yes, anyone? 1 millivolt. 1000 times reduction. Understood? Guys? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Have you properly understood this? There is only a few, there is only one or two people who are responding. What about others? लॉग इन करके चले गए क्या? Hello? Okay, I'll proceed. Another important parameter is the dropout voltage. Now, what is this dropout voltage? We have already seen, but if required, okay. Now, remember that the internal pass transistor has always to be in the active region. It should always be in the active region. If you remember the figure over here, and if it goes into the saturation region here, it will lose the regulation. How will it lose the regulation? Because this will be tied to VSAT only. No, there won't be any change possible here in VCE. So you have to always make sure that the transistor is always in the active region here. For that, we must make sure that the voltage at this input is always at a higher voltage. How much higher? In this case, it is typically 2 volts higher than the output voltage. So you are having actually giving a margin of about 2 volts to ensure that the internal pass transistor does not land up in saturation. Now, at the same point, I want to tell you one thing, that the power dissipation across that device also will be more. We are going to see to that particular thing later on. Okay, and so nowadays this actually is wastage of power. See, like this. So we are having this dropout, and if you are passing, let us say if this dropout is 2 volts, even if it is 2 volts, and I am passing about 1 ampere, what is going to be the power dissipation across the device? Guys, the collector current is 1 ampere, VCE is 2 volts. What is going to be the power dissipation across the device? Hello? Hello.
2 what?
Sir, 2 volt.
Excellent. So 2 watts. 2 watts is a huge power too. I mean, it is just a wastage in form of heat. Okay. So nowadays we come across various new types of regulators which are called as the LDOs, called as low dropout regulators. For those people who have started working with their mini projects and mostly the 3.3 volt devices, you must have come across LM1117. That is a regulator. It is a 3-terminal regulator and it is a low dropout regulator. It simply means that I can have as low as 3.5 volts at the input. Still, output is going to be 3.3 volts. So this is a low dropout regulator. Okay. So this dropout voltage is a very important thing. So have you understood the important parameters of the regulator from the data sheet? Which one to look out for? Yes? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Step 4. We compute the permissible minimum voltage at the input of the regulator. Because dropout is known to us, because output voltage is known to us, we can find out what should be the minimum voltage to appear at the input of the regulator. And that is V in minimum, which is V out plus dropout, plus I am keeping a safety margin of 1 volt here. That turns out to be 8 volts. So it simply means that at the input to my regulator, I must have a minimum 8 volts here. This is output is 5 volts. So minimum 8 volts have to be appearing at the input to the regulator. Okay. Then I will, in step 5, I compute the maximum allowable ripple. So again, it's going to be a rippled output. And my expected ripples at the output is going to be a very small value of 5 millivolts. So what is the maximum ripple that is allowable? For that, you have to use this ripple rejection ratio formula. And from that, for LM7805, you see that I can have as large as 6.295 volts as the ripple, peak to peak ripple I'm talking about. And for LM7905, you can have a ripple of maximum 2.5. Now, once I allow this up to this maximum, this value, it is guaranteed that my output will contain a ripple less than 5 millivolts as demanded by the specifications. Okay. Now, most of the times we like to keep the this ripple is dependent on the capacitor. Okay, the filter capacitor. So we'll allow, for both the cases, we'll allow maximum ripple to be 2.5 volts. In fact, if I allow this to be 2.5 volt, it is going to be still better. It will be definitely going to be less than 5 millivolts, no? So I allow, for both the cases, I allow 2.5 volts at the input to the regulators. Also, one important thing that you have to note is that if I enthusiastically try to reduce this ripple, somebody will say, I'll have only 0.5 volt ripple. But that won't help because you will require a larger capacitor. And larger capacitor means a large repetitive surge current. We have already seen such a kind of thing. So, hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there was a call drop, I guess. Okay, so compute the maximum input voltage at the output of rectifier. So what is going to be the output? What should be the output of rectifier? Earlier we have already said that this should be, okay, for that I have to go back and draw something. So please hold on. We'll switch back to the OneNote page. Okay. All right. So as I said, this is the output of the rectifier with filter, capacitor filter. So how will it look like? So these are going to be the ripples. So this is the peak voltage. This is the minimum voltage. Okay, and this is going to be the peak ripple voltage. V ripple, peak to peak. Now we had calculated earlier that the minimum voltage that is required to the input to the regulator is 8 volts. So here in this case, if I make this as if I use the capacitor filter, capacitor input filter. Now what should I just want to find out what should be the peak value here? V peak. Okay. So this is 8 plus this ripple 2.5 volts. So that should give me 10.5 volts. This value is 10.5 volts. Understood? Okay, let me switch back to our presentation. Okay, that is it. As I said, it is going to be 10.5 volts. So this is going to be the maximum input voltage. Now we want the current boost transistor to take current sharing. Now please remember that there is no point in letting all the, we want 2 amperes totally as a load current. There is no point in having a share. As it is, we are going to use the boost transistor. So why not let only a small percentage or a small fraction pass through the regulator? Okay, so we would want that the load sharing to start at 50 milliamperes. So there will be some resistors required there. If you look at the topology, there is going to be some voltage drop across these resistors also, right? So we have to account for these drops also. So that is the reason I will say I will allow a drop of 1 volt each. So in addition to 2 volt drop across the rectifier diodes also. Remember, the rectifiers also will have some resistance, the bulk resistance to be more precise, and there will be some voltage drop across this diodes also. So all in all, what I want to find out is what should be the output of the transformer. That's all. So therefore, V in max comes out to be 10.5 plus this 1 volt drop across R1 or R2, 2 volts across the rectifier diodes comes to 13.5. I will round it off to 14 volts. So this should be the output voltage of the transformer. Next is the selection of capacitor, filter capacitor C1 and C2. We use this equation for the same. What does it say? Ripple is given as maximum peak to peak ripple is given as in maximum input voltage divided by 2 into F into the capacitor into the load condition, maximum load, worst case load condition. Okay. If I use this equation, I can get the capacitor to be 8000 microfarads. Okay. Now we have to select the next higher value. This may not be a standard value. So we have to always select the next higher value. Remember, for this capacitor selection, specifically when we are talking about the filter capacitor for power supply, we have to always go for the next higher capacitor. So we select 8200 microfarad, and now you have to recalculate the ripple. It turns out to be 2.4, which is obviously will be less than the one which we have started off with as 2.5 volts. Now here you can see these are this is called as a non-repetitive surge current. These are called as a repetitive surge current. We have already discussed this when we talked about diode specifications. So using this value of ripple to compute the diode average current and the diode peak current, we are supposed to find out the diode peak current. So diode peak current can be found out to be here using this. This is the average, but this is the peak which we have to find out, which we got as 23.29 amperes. So can you imagine that the load current, even though the load current is rated at 2 ampere DC load current, in spite of that, the spikes can go. I mean, the repetitive surge current that can be there in our circuit can be as high as 23.29 amperes. So you have to select the diode in a particular way. Please remember this step very, very carefully. Then we compute the WVDC of a capacitor. Remember, capacitor, 3 parameters: value, tolerance, and WVDC. These are the 3 selection criteria for the capacitor. So you want to find out WVDC. It turns out to be 2 into the maximum voltage across it, which is 28 volts. Next is the selection of rectifier diodes. Rectifier diodes are selected on the basis of peak inverse voltage, average forward current, repetitive surge current, and of course the non-repetitive surge current also. Now there I was saying peak inverse voltage. So here in this case, peak inverse voltage we can easily find out. Okay. An average forward current, that is a DC current. Repetitive surge. Now for repetitive surge, the diode data sheets give you this kind of graph. Number of cycles at 60 Hz and the current rating. So it simply means that continuously how much current I can draw from the diode. Okay. So as you can see, as the frequency goes on increasing here, like number of cycles, this particular rating drops down. It simply means that the number of times I draw more and more current from it, its current rating drops down. So if it is only for one time, you can see it is as high as 200 amperes for this particular diode 1N5408. But as the frequency increases, the current rating drops to 75 amperes. So this is the repetition, whereas this is only one time, once in a blue moon. So that is what this is about. So this rating and these 2 ratings. So based on that graph, we are supposed to find out what is the rating given by the manufacturer and correspondingly select it. For 1N5408, it is 82.125 amperes. For this non-repetitive, we have already found that as 200 amperes for this device. Forward voltage drop has to be found out, and this is not required at this point of time. Bulk resistance is required. We know how to calculate the bulk resistance. So we select 1N5400 as the rectifier diodes. From datasheet we get this as 1.2 volts as the forward voltage drop. Bulk resistance can be found out as 0.1667 ohms. Now we will assume the transformer secondary winding resistance as 0.1 ohm and find out what is the maximum surge current, which is non-repetitive. For the very first time, when the circuit is switched on, the capacitor is as if short circuited. So the only limiting resistance in the path are the transformer secondary and the bulk resistance. It turns out to be 52 amperes. So we select the device, the diode, and list them down like this in the table. So it is a standard, it is a good practice to make a table like this. Parameter for the device, ratings, required ratings, and the actual ratings. So PIV from the data sheet we got at 50. We already found this to be 32.2. So okay, Again, remember I have added factor of safety of 15% here. All right. Similarly, for forward current, same thing, 3 ampere, but I calculated it to be 2.3. For repetitive surge current, it is rated at 82.125. Requirement is 223.29. So this is fine. Non-repetitive, it is 200 amperes. We got at 52.49. So it is very much within the range. Next is the selection of transformer. So you can use this equation directly to get the value of Vs RMS. That turns out to be 13.71 volt. Okay, of course, this is AC component. All right, so transformer secondary rating is 2 into that, so it becomes 28 volt AC. Secondary RMS from the table that we have already seen turns out to be 3.6 amperes. Turns ratio happened to be 8, number 8. Hence, the transformer to be selected is 28 volts center tap at 3.6 amperes, and the volt ampere rating is 101 volt amperes. All right. Okay. Actually, I am very much exhausted at this point of time, so I will stop here for today. Let us not complete this design immediately. We'll meet next time and complete this design. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Meanwhile, whatever I have done, please revise that so that it becomes, so that you can be ready for the next part. All right. I'm going to stop the recording and end the meeting.